Welcome to Build, Grow, and Sell, where we're going to build the best title operations, including ABAs from the ground up. I'm Brian Rieger, and the gentlemen who are going to show you how to do that today have built hundreds of title operations, including ABAs. And they've also talked more than a few out of doing JVs and into doing things that are maybe more appropriate for their goals. So I'd like to welcome now from closingsuite.com, Aaron Davis and Mike LaRosa. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hey, Brian.
How are we doing today? How are we doing?
We're good, thanks. You?
Good. So from what I'm hearing, you're getting a lot of questions. I want to start by saying, it's all the rage right now to build affiliated arrangements. A lot of folks kind of assume it's just like opening up a cash spigot and suddenly you're capturing title revenue. And of course, you guys have said repeatedly, and we'll say again, that's not the case. You need to build an operation. But as I understand it, you're getting quite a few questions about capitalization, how to go about it, how much, how long, what's the timing. So, Mike, we're going to kick off with you today. And I guess you have a sample ABA pro forma in front of us just to kind of get us started and kind of walk us into the capitalization process.
Yeah, definitely. And Brian, I mean, without a doubt, the most common question I get is how much? How much for me to, get into ownership of a title company, a joint venture? And I've got to warn everybody out there, let common sense be your guide. Again, I'm always going to be the one who says these aren't difficult if you do them the right way. And what you need to think about is, and I harp on this a lot, but it needs to be run like a legitimate, separate business. It needs to look, smell, feel, stand on its own like a separate business. And if it can't stand on its own, then you shouldn't be getting into the business. And part of it is capitalization. If someone tells you that you can get into title ownership for a few $100s and get returns of thousands, tens of thousands, you should be wary of it. You need to be investing in a real opportunity with real capitalization, with a real risk, the potential to lose it all, and the potential also to make money if you operate the business effectively and efficiently. But if someone's telling you can get into this for a few bucks and it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If we can throw the numbers up, now I don't need you to get too hung up on, what's going on up here. There's nothing proprietary or confidential I've included in this pro forma. I just put it up as a dummy pro forma because I really wanted to scroll down to show you how we analyze these things. When you get down to the expense line items, and these might differ depending on your geography, how you run your company, but you're going to have a few big ones in there: rent, salaries, insurance, what have you. What I focused on always is at the end of all these sample expenses, this number right here at the bottom, in this example I'm giving, and you're looking at $32,000 a month. And that's important, and I can tell you why. We can come off those numbers now. If you're ever audited or you're being analyzed for the legitimacy of the creation of your entity, they're going to want to know right away, was it capitalized legitimately from inception? Did you write a check to capitalize? Not, did you accept a loan from me to set it up? Not, did I allow you to take your capitalization out of the first quarter distributions? No, an actual check with an actual investment. The way we do ours, usually we look at them and say, that monthly nut, and we generally go 3 to 6 months of operating expenses. So in that case, it was about $33,000. I would multiply that number by 3. So I know I have 3 months minimum operating expense in the bank. It's a title agency. If you run it correctly, by month 3, your orders in should equal your closings out, your revenue has come in, and you should be okay if you do it right. If you really have the wherewithal to open a title company, you should be able to sustain yourself by that 3rd month. So when we analyze ours, Aaron and I say $33,000 a month times 3 months, that's $100,000. And we usually say 100 shares for ease of math, $1,000 a share, $1,000 for 1% ownership. That to me sounds like a legitimately capitalized joint venture title company. Some people do even more, and we do sometimes, depending on, like I said, geography, need, business source, etc.
Yeah, and Mike, I'll even go further and say, depends on the time of the year. So let's talk November, December, January, February. Typically, most markets, those are slower months. So if you're going to launch in, say, October, November, you're not going to see any kind of significant returns probably until the following March, April, when the market picks up, the kids get back in school, you get back from winter break, everyone's back from vacation. So you may have an argument for 6 months of capitalization. I think typically what we see is anywhere from 3 to 6. And remember, that's not always that's not always the startup cost either. That's the monthly operating expenses. So in startup mode, you're going to have the purchase of desk and chairs, and do you have to remodel? And are you binding, a big E&O policy or cybercrimes policy up front? So there may be a lot of significant upfront startup costs that you have to consider as well.
Very interesting. And of course, Mike, as you said before, it could vary by market, seasonality, all these great factors. There is no one size fits all pro forma or answer to capitalization. So I only have one more big question for both of you here. What's the major takeaway for new operators or even experienced ABA partners and operators when you're considering capitalization? What's the one thing they need to have control of when they get started?
The one thing they need to have control of is they need to have control.
What's the one thing to keep in mind?
You have to be ready to start a title company. You have to have control of some transactions. You have to know there's going to be some consistent transaction volume. Otherwise, you're throwing good money after bad. I mean, if you start an entity and you're not prepared for it, you're going to spend a few months spinning your wheels. Well, these are legitimate company-owned expenses. If you have to have staff, you have to have insurance, you have to have rent. So if you're going to open one of these legitimately and you're not prepared and you're expecting 25 closings a month and you only get 4 or 5 as you're building it, that's a recipe for disaster. You need to go into this thing knowing that it's a legitimate business with a legitimate expenses, and it can't be, it can't be babied by one of the parent entities, that being us or the real estate brokerage. We can't support the entity. We can't pick up the expenses one month, to help it get through. The entity needs to be legitimately capitalized from inception. And if you want it to work, it needs to have consistent business. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah. And Mike, the thing I hear is you need to have your own employees. You can't start a title company borrowing other people's employees or borrowing employees from the parent company or the mothership. It has to stand on its own 2 legs. It has to have, depending on state requirements, licensed title agent in charge, has to have someone there to facilitate closings and perform core title duties. So If you have an operation today, any title company can outsource post-closing, or any title company can outsource order entry. There's things that you can outsource today, and that's all fine. But you have to perform the duties that are required by RESPA and state law as core title functions.
Well, gentlemen, a lot of good stuff here today. We're just about out of time here on Build, Grow, and Sell, but this isn't our last video. We'll keep coming back and hitting your questions. We'll keep hitting the topics that you'd like to hear about when it comes to building title operations, ABAs, and otherwise. I'd like to again thank Aaron Davis and Mike LaRosa of ClosingSuite.com, also Florida Agency Network. Again, check out their contact information. Let's continue the conversation, or maybe there's a topic you haven't heard yet. So be sure to reach out. They do love to discuss affiliated arrangements. And with that, we'll see you back here next time. And again, I'm Brian Rieger. Thanks for joining us on Build, Grow, and Sell.